Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'een. The last thing for this chapter is i'tikaf. The last thing is i'tikaf. So the Shaykh says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to perform i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan until he passed away. And thereafter, after him, his wives continued performing i'tikaf. So here there's a few masail with regards to i'tikaf. In summary, we say that i'tikaf is a sunnah at all times. And it is more emphasized in Ramadan and more emphasized than that in the last 10 days of Ramadan. And we say i'tikaf. The definition of i'tikaf is to spend, is for a person who is at least on the age of mumayyiz, who is not in the state of janaba, not in the state where ghusl is obligatory on him. If he were to spend any amount of time in the mosque with the intention of ibadah, that would be i'tikaf. So it's this person mumayyiz onwards to go to the mosque, and he were to not be passing by the mosque but actually spending a bit of time in the mosque, just to be in the mosque. But not merely to be in the mosque, to be in the mosque with the intention of ibadah. Not passing by, not going to fix something, not going to fetch something, with the intention of ibadah. However short this would be, whether fasting or not, in general, fasting on Ramadan in the day you have to be fasting, but in general, meaning even outside Ramadan, i'tikaf is valid. Then this would be i'tikaf. So the fuqaha say it is sunnah for a person going to the mosque to intend i'tikaf. When he enters the mosque, to intend that he's spending time in the mosque. So it's a kind of i'tikaf. So he should be cognizant of the aspect that he's spending time in the mosque for, and the aspect of i'tikaf. So he can get extra reward, the reward of being in that situation like an i'tikaf. So we get a few masail from that. Firstly, i'tikaf has no limit. Second, no time limit, and you do not need to be fasting. But we mention a few main masail, and that is i'tikaf should be or has to be in a mosque. So a mosque, the fuqaha say, in summary, they say it is a space, an area designated for salah. Let's go further, because some say designated takhsis al-buqa', but let's say it's a place of salah that's specified for salah, as in it is waqf. Waqf generally means something is given to Allah. So that means it goes out of the possession of the person. It is for Allah forever. But some of the ulama in the Hanbali madhab, some of them also Hanafi and other fuqaha, they also allow a temporary waqf. And that applies in many countries where they have to rent out places. They cannot have this place being forever. It's just a mosque. It's just a land for a mosque. They have to rent out. So then it's a place of prayer, but the agreement is many years, 20 years, whatever, it will be used as a mosque. So we say that counts. It is a waqf. It is an area specified for salah. So it is a waqf. It is specified for salah, and also it has like a building or like a barrier surrounding it, specifying this area. So when we say building, we don't necessarily mean walls and a roof, but there's like even a wall outside this area. That would all of the inside would be deemed a mosque. So a wall, sometimes you have outside the wall area that is designated for salah, but there's like a fence around it, not specifically a building. Not specifically a building with walls, but there's like a fence, similar to Masjidun Nabawi. We say that all counts as a mosque. So a person has to perform i'tikaf, person, male or female, in a mosque. If Salatul Jama'ah is obligatory on him, then he has to perform salah in a mosque where Salatul Jama'ah takes place. So obligatory being on him, meaning he is a male, or he is, in fact, if there are more than one person in i'tikaf, they can perform Salatul Jama'ah themselves, so it is valid. Or we mean he is in the mosque, he's performing i'tikaf at a time where salah will come. So since you can perform i'tikaf anytime, if you did it from after Fajr to before Dhuhr, no salah. So you do not need to be at a place where Salatul Jama'ah will be performed. So if you have to perform Salatul Jama'ah, you should be in a mosque where Salatul Jama'ah will take place. Not necessarily Salatul Jumu'ah, not Salatul Jumu'ah. You do not need to be in a mosque where Salatul Jumu'ah will take place. You can leave your mosque to go to a mosque where Salatul Jumu'ah comes. So we'll mention it now. So that's some of the main masail with regards to i'tikaf in general. So now we go to another couple of masail that are connected to i'tikaf before we end off. So i'tikaf, there are two types of i'tikaf. There's a sunnah i'tikaf and a wajib i'tikaf. Wajib i'tikaf is an i'tikaf that is a result of a vow. A person articulates that I am going to perform i'tikaf for X amount of days or time or dates for Allah in general, or he says if something happens or whatever it is. We'll mention the fiqh of vows at the end, inshallah, at the end of fiqh, at the end of the book. So therefore a person articulates the vow. The fuqaha say that an ibadah without the vow is better than ibadah with a vow, because Rasulullah said that you use a vow basically to take out wealth from somebody who is stingy. إنما يستخرج من البخيل. So it's as if, so that's where a vow is connected to wealth. Hence the connection to that you can do vow fasts and vow ibadah on behalf of somebody else, because the vow has a connection to wealth. Hence you give kafara if you not fulfill the vow. And also we'll mention in more details certain situations or cases where you do not need to fast, but you can give the kafara, you can give the wealth on behalf of this person who made the vow. But we leave that for another time. So basically they say the ibadah without the vow is better, where you just do it for the sake of Allah but you do not take the vow. But once a vow has been made, it is obligatory to fulfill the vow. It is obligatory to fulfill the vow. So there's a few differences between the two. So one of the difference is that if a person were to sit for i'tikaf with a vow, and he were to leave, let's say he's made a vow to sit in i'tikaf for 3 specific days, and during the i'tikaf he left in a way that his i'tikaf would break. Here he'd have to give kafara. He'd have to give kafara. In a sunnah i'tikaf, there's no kafara. You can leave when you want, enter when you want, do when you want, do what you want. The only difference is, let's say you just left for no reason, there'll be no reward. There'll be no reward. But when you come back to the mosque, reward continues. And the other second main thing is what they call ishtirat, and that is a stipulation. Because in i'tikaf, you have to spend most of your time in the mosque. You have to spend all your time in the mosque. But certain things you could leave the mosque for. Certain things that are not necessary things. These things, if you stipulate that I am sitting in i'tikaf for 10 days, these specific 10 days, but I want to sleep at home, but I want to eat at home, but I want to visit the sick if I hear of somebody sick, we'd say these things you allow to stipulate. If you did these things without the stipulation, your vow would break. But you do not make a vow for a nafil i'tikaf, because you can leave whenever you want. So that's two of the main differences between the sunnah i'tikaf and the vow i'tikaf. Then when it comes to i'tikaf in general, a person can leave the mosque for things that he has to do, either because sharia has caused him to need to do these things, or naturally he needs to do these things. So he can leave the mosque to answer the call of nature. He must leave the mosque to answer the call of nature. He should leave the mosque to clean impurity, for example. He should leave the mosque, something sharia commanded, let's say salatul jumu'ah. He has to go for salatul jumu'ah, or he has to do an ibadah that's obligatory on him. There's no person to visit the sick, and it's fard kifaya. One person needs to do it. He's the only one who can. It's obligatory on him to go. He has nobody to bring him food and drink. He can go himself to fetch the food and drink and do the sale outside the mosque. It's not permissible to do transaction in the mosque. He does the sale outside the mosque and comes back to eat in the mosque. It's allowed to eat in the mosque as long as you don't dirty the mosque. So these things are allowed. If a person were to leave for something that's not necessary, his i'tikaf will break. If it is sunnah i'tikaf, it's okay. He can go, no reward for that time, and when he comes back, he can re-intend and his reward restarts. In another i'tikaf, his i'tikaf will break. So if he left out to go home for no reason, or for food for no reason, or he left out just for fresh air, his i'tikaf will break. His i'tikaf will break. Therefore, what could help him not have his nadhr i'tikaf break is ishtirat, is to stipulate. Stipulate what? What are you allowed? You can stipulate to go out for ibadah. Three things. Three things you're allowed to stipulate. Number one, for an ibadah that is not obligatory on you. You can say, I want to go out to visit a sick that I hear of, or to attend a janazah that I hear of. You can do that. Number two, things that you do not need to do for your physical self, you can stipulate. I want to go home to have meals. I want to sleep at home. I want to have a shower once a day. You're allowed to. Number three, a shower once a day at home, because you could take a shower when you're allowed to go out. For example, you need to answer the call of nature, then you can take a shower one time without prolonging. But just to go out for the sake of taking a shower, you can stipulate. What you're not allowed to stipulate is just to go out whenever you wish. I'm spending 3 days in i'tikaf, but I want to go out whenever I wish. Not permissible. Or to go out to do transactions, not permissible. It would break, the stipulation would not be valid, and your i'tikaf would break. The last two masail with i'tikaf, then there's one more hadith the Shaykh mentions and we end off, and that is that what breaks i'tikaf. So we mentioned going out. So if you leave the mosque, your entire body in a situation where you're not allowed to leave, your i'tikaf will break. If you intend breaking i'tikaf, you're with your intention, I am breaking my i'tikaf, you intend that, your i'tikaf is broken. The last two main things we mentioned is if a person were to have intercourse, or were to have physical skin on skin without intercourse with his wife, and he were to ejaculate many, his fast would be, his i'tikaf would be broken. Or he were to have intercourse. What do we mean by having intercourse if he's in i'tikaf? Meaning he goes home for a reason or through a stipulation, and then when he is home, he has intercourse. If his i'tikaf breaks, he gives kafara. But just like that? No. Two situations. Either he stipulates i'tikaf for a specific amount of days, or he specifies i'tikaf for a specific amount of dates. The specifying is when he does the oath, or in his mind intending. So situation A, he says that I will perform i'tikaf for the sake of Allah, as a vow to perform i'tikaf for the sake of Allah. Any wording that you use that has the meaning where you are doing this, you are obligating it on yourself for Allah. Let's say for 6 days. When are these 6 days? Anytime. Then here, if his i'tikaf broke, he has two options. Either he restarts, then no kafara, and he restarts, or he gives kafara and he continues. So on day 3 his i'tikaf broke, he can give kafara and continue with the remaining 3 days. Or he can cancel, or he can restart. And no kafara. Number 2, he specifies dates. I will spend i'tikaf for Allah on day 2 of Muharram to day 6. Then on day 4 he breaks his i'tikaf. Here he has to continue with his i'tikaf until day 6, but give kafara for breaking his portion of i'tikaf on day 4. He has to give kafara for that. And that's some of the main masail with regards to i'tikaf, the nadhr and the non-nadhr, the sunnah and the wajib. The last mas'ala, and that's what the Shaykh quotes the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, do not specifically travel to any masjid other than Masjidul Haram, Masjidul Nabawi, and Masjidul Aqsa. So the fuqaha say this hadith refers to a few things, but many of them mainly specify to vows. Right? It includes other masail, like traveling to visit the grave, etc. We'll mention it perhaps in other chapters or other books when the books discuss the mas'ala. They discuss in the chapter of shortening salah and other places. But here we're going to keep it to what they mention with regards to vows. They say that if a person makes a vow to perform salah or i'tikaf in any masjid other than these 3 masajid, then the vow now becomes an obligation on the person. But the mosque that he specified, that is not obligatory. We We said other than those three mosques. So he can perform his salah or i'tikaf in any mosque in the world. Any mosque in the world, and no kafar. Because Rasulullah said, do not specifically travel to a mosque other than those three mosques. So if you specify a mosque to perform your salah or i'tikaf, you need to specifically go to that mosque to fulfill your i'tikaf or your salah vow. So that means you'd oppose the hadith, right? So that's one thing. Number two, they say that the best of these three mosques are, the best is Masjidul Haram, second Masjidul Nabawi, third Masjidul Aqsa. So if a person took a vow to perform salah or i'tikaf in any of these three mosques, then the vow is an obligation and the mosque is an obligation. So here he would not be opposing the hadith by needing to travel to that mosque, but they say he is allowed to perform that, to fulfill that vow in a mosque that is of a higher degree, better than the mosque of his vow. So if he vowed in Masjid al-Nabawi, he can perform the salah or i'tikaf. He made a vow of Masjid al-Nabawi, he can perform that salah or i'tikaf in Masjid al-Haram, but not Masjid al-Aqsa. And if he did it in Aqsa, he can perform it in either of the other two mosques, right? If he did it in Masjid al-Haram, the vow for Masjid al-Haram, he can only perform it there because that is the best. You cannot go lower, and there's no other option that is higher. The last thing, they say that if a person made a vow to perform the salah or i'tikaf in a mosque where Jumu'ah is performed, then he has to perform the i'tikaf in the mosque where Jumu'ah is performed. In the mosque where Jumu'ah is performed. You cannot perform i'tikaf in a mosque where there's no Jumu'ah, right? So that's the last mas'ala. And with that, we've completed this chapter. Some main masail of this chapter. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us that which benefit us, and benefit us with that which He teaches us. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.